Emily sat on the edge of her small apartment balcony, staring at the glowing city below. The streets were alive with laughter, neon lights flickering like distant stars, and the faint hum of music drifting from a nearby cafe. She hugged her knees to her chest, a quiet sigh escaping her lips. Another Friday night alone. Another evening where the world seemed to move forward without her. She watched a group of people crossing the street, their arms linked, faces lit with joy and energy. Her chest ached just a little, not from sadness but from longing. There was something about seeing others connect that made her feel both hopeful and slightly invisible. Emily was 29, working as a graphic designer in a job she liked but that rarely left space for excitement. Her life was orderly, predictable, safe but sometimes too safe. Her phone buzzed on the small table beside her. A message from her best friend Rachel appeared on the screen. "Hey Em, big night tonight. You in?" Emily stared at it, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. Normally she would have said no. The thought of leaving her quiet apartment for a crowded bar made her stomach twist with a mix of anxiety and reluctance. But there was something different tonight. Something restless in her heart that whispered, maybe this is the night things change. She typed back with a tentative smile. "Okay, I'll come." The decision felt small, almost insignificant, but inside, it stirred a tiny flutter of anticipation. Perhaps it was the chance to see old friends, to be part of something larger than herself. Perhaps it was the hope of seeing Alex. She hadn't seen him in months, not since the end of college, not since he had moved to a different city for work. They had stayed in touch, texting occasionally, laughing over shared memories, but life had a way of keeping people apart. And yet, the thought of running into him tonight made her heart beat a little faster, even if she tried not to show it. Emily stood and stretched, glancing at her reflection in the window. Her brown hair was pulled into a simple ponytail, her green eyes reflecting the soft city lights. She smoothed the front of her casual dress, thinking how absurd it was that a simple outing could make her feel both excited and nervous at the same time. She grabbed her bag and keys, took a deep breath and stepped out into the cool evening air. The walk to the cafe where they were meeting felt longer than usual. Each step seemed to echo in her mind. She watched couples holding hands, friends laughing over shared jokes, and families strolling together. A pang of loneliness crept in, but it wasn't bitter, it was honest. Emily had spent enough nights alone to recognize that her longing wasn't about pity. It was about connection, about the quiet hope that life still had surprises left for her. When she arrived, Rachel was already there, waving energetically. Her friend's presence was like sunlight cutting through the clouds, immediately easing Emily's nervous tension. "Em, you made it," Rachel said, enveloping her in a warm hug. "You look amazing." Emily smiled, grateful for the genuine warmth. It had been too long since she'd felt this kind of lightness. As they walked together into the buzzing heart of the cafe, Emily noticed the mix of energy and intimacy in the space. People were talking, laughing, sharing little victories or small frustrations. Somewhere in the middle of all this chaos, she felt a flicker of curiosity, a quiet question forming in her mind. What if tonight doesn't go the way I expect? They found a small corner table, and Emily sank into the chair, feeling the soft hum of conversation wash over her. Rachel immediately began talking about her week, stories flowing with laughter and animated gestures. Emily listened, occasionally chiming in, but her mind kept wandering. She imagined the night ahead, wondering if there would be surprises. Friends she hadn't seen in a long time. Perhaps a chance encounter with someone who would remind her what it felt like to feel alive. And then from across the room Emily saw him. Alex. He was leaning casually against the counter, scanning the room as if searching for someone. His familiar smile was there, the one that had always made her chest tighten ever so slightly. Time seemed to pause and Emily's heart fluttered in a way she hadn't felt in years. She felt both thrilled and terrified. The unmistakable mix of excitement and vulnerability that comes when you realize life might be about to shift. Rachel noticed her stare and nudged her shoulder. "Go say hi," she whispered, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. Emily hesitated, chewing the inside of her lip. Her mind raced with possibilities, memories, and the fragile hope of reconnecting. For a moment everything felt suspended. The city sounds, the laughter around her, the steady pulse of her own heartbeat. And in that moment, She knew something about this night was different. Something unexpected was waiting, just beyond the corner of her ordinary life. As she stood and began to move toward Alex, a quiet thrill ran through her. Tonight was no longer just another Friday night. Tonight held the promise of connection, of laughter, of surprises she hadn't even imagined. And as she took that first step forward, Emily couldn't help but feel that the course of her life might be about to change. Gently, unexpectedly, forever. Emily walked toward Alex, her heart beating in an unpredictable rhythm, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. It had been months since they'd last seen each other, yet the familiarity of his presence hit her instantly. Time hadn't erased the small things she remembered, the way he tilted his head when he laughed, the warmth in his eyes when he truly listened, or the way he always seemed to know just when she needed comfort. "Alex," she said softly, offering a tentative smile. "Emily." His voice carried a mixture of surprise and joy, and for a moment, it felt like no time had passed at all. They laughed awkwardly at the brief pause, the words seeming both unnecessary and yet impossible to escape. As they settled at a nearby table, their conversation began cautiously, small talk about work, the weather, mutual friends, but soon drifted into memories, the kind that had made their friendship feel unbreakable during their college years. "Remember that night at Lake Willow?" Emily asked, her eyes lighting up with the recollection. "We stayed out until sunrise, just talking about everything and nothing." Alex chuckled, a sound that stirred a warm ache inside her chest. "How could I forget? You insisted on bringing a whole picnic basket, and we ended up eating more marshmallows than anything else." They laughed together, and in that laughter, Emily felt the comfort of a bond that had been forged long ago. It was the kind of connection that didn't need words to be understood. The kind of bond that had made late-night study sessions, long walks, and quiet confidences feel effortless. Yet beneath the laughter, a hint of sadness lingered. Both of them had drifted apart after graduation. Life had pulled them in different directions. Alex moving to another city for a job opportunity, Emily taking on projects that consumed her time and energy. There had been no arguments, no falling out, only the slow, gentle distance that life sometimes imposes. And somewhere along the way, unspoken feelings had formed, tentative, fragile, but real. "I never got to say this," Alex said quietly, his tone uncharacteristically serious. "I missed this. I missed us." Emily felt a pang of something she hadn't expected: recognition, longing, and the bittersweet ache of what might have been. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Me too. More than I realized." For a moment they simply looked at each other, the noise of the cafe fading into the background. Memories washed over her late-night study sessions in the campus library, impromptu walks in the rain, and the countless small moments of laughter and understanding that had always made Alex feel like home. "Do you remember the time we got lost on our way to the art exhibit?" Emily asked, a small smile forming. "We ended up walking for hours talking about our dreams, and you promised me I'd never lose my way in life." Alex's eyes softened, and he nodded. "I meant it. I still do. You've always had this light, Emily, even when you didn't see it yourself." Her chest tightened. It wasn't just nostalgia. It was the weight of unspoken emotions, the recognition of a connection that had never truly faded. She realized that their separation hadn't been due to lack of care or interest. Life had intervened, subtly but firmly, and neither had known how to bridge the gap that had slowly formed. They shared a quiet laugh as a memory of a failed cooking attempt during a college dorm party came up. Emily burning toast while Alex tried to salvage it with questionable culinary skills. It was silly, mundane, and yet it reminded them of the small joys that had always defined their friendship. Those moments weren't flashy or dramatic, but they carried the kind of warmth that lingered long after the night ended. As they continued talking, Emily noticed the way Alex's gaze lingered on her, not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but in a way that suggested he saw her, the real her, not just the surface she presented to the world. It was a look that spoke of admiration, understanding, and a quiet longing mirrored in her own eyes. The conversation shifted seamlessly from past memories to the present. They talked about jobs, mutual friends, and the small victories and failures of everyday life. Yet beneath the surface, a quiet undercurrent of something more lingered. An unspoken acknowledgement that the bond between them had always been stronger than circumstance. and that perhaps tonight offered a chance to rediscover it. When Rachel returned from ordering drinks, laughing and animated as ever, Emily realized how easily the night had slipped into a rhythm of comfort and familiarity. Yet a part of her remained acutely aware of Alex sitting across from her, the way his presence filled the space in a way that no one else could. And as the night unfolded with laughter, shared stories and the occasional reflective silence, Emily felt a fragile, tender hope stirring in her heart. Perhaps after months of quiet longing and missed chances, the threads of their connection could be woven back together. Not just as friends, but as two people who had always carried a quiet, unspoken place for each other in their hearts. For the first time in a long time, Emily allowed herself to imagine that maybe, just maybe, some things were worth waiting for. Some connections, no matter the distance or time apart, were never truly lost. The cafe's music shifted to a softer, slower melody, the kind that made conversation feel intimate even in the middle of a busy room. Emily and Alex sat together, leaning slightly toward one another, laughter still lingering on their lips from old memories. But now there was something different, a quiet electricity in the air, subtle yet undeniable, that made her pulse quicken without warning. It wasn't dramatic or forced. It was a simple accident, a glass tipping over as Rachel reached for her drink, spilling water across the table. Emily jumped, grabbing napkins, while Alex's hand brushed hers as he moved to help. The contact was fleeting, almost incidental, but it was enough to bring a rush of warmth to her chest. "I'm so sorry," Rachel said, embarrassed, laughing nervously. "I didn't mean to ruin our little corner here." "No worries," Emily replied, smiling. She glanced at Alex, who returned the smile with one that carried something unspoken. For a moment it felt like the world had narrowed to just the two of them. As they cleaned up the small mess, Emily's thoughts drifted back to all the moments they had shared. Moments that seemed trivial at the time but were now brimming with meaning. Alex's hand lingered just a second longer than necessary on hers as he passed her a napkin. That small gesture, the casual closeness, felt like a spark rekindling something she hadn't dared to name. "Emily," Alex said quietly, his voice lowering just enough that it felt like a private conversation. "I've thought about tonight all week. I wasn't sure if you'd come." Emily felt her heart tighten in that familiar way. A mixture of surprise, longing, and hope. "I almost didn't," she admitted, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her glass. "But I'm glad I did. I've missed you." The words hung between them, delicate yet potent. Neither spoke further, but the silence was comfortable, weighted with emotions neither had expressed before. It was the kind of moment that could only happen when two people knew each other so well that even quiet could carry meaning. Outside the window, city lights flickered over puddles from the earlier rain, reflecting 1,000 tiny possibilities. Emily found herself mesmerized not just by the scene, but by the fact that Alex was there beside her, a presence she had longed for more than she had realized. Fate, coincidence, or simply timing, it didn't matter. Something had brought them together tonight and she could feel it. They stepped outside for a breath of fresh air, joining the bustling street where cars passed by in a blur of headlights. Emily's coat hugged her close, and Alex walked alongside her, their shoulders nearly touching. It was natural, unforced, yet the subtle nearness felt electric, reminding her of all the times she had quietly wished for this closeness. A street performer played a soft tune on a violin nearby. Emily paused, letting the music wash over her, and Alex stopped as well. Their eyes met, lingering just a little longer than before, and for a moment words were unnecessary. The music, the lights, the quiet intimacy of the city, all of it wrapped them in a fragile, fleeting world of possibility. "Do you ever think about what could have been?" Emily asked suddenly, her voice almost lost in the hum of the street. Alex hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All the time," he admitted. "I always wondered if we'd end up like this years later, still finding our way back to each other." Emily's heart swelled at his words. She had felt the same countless times but had never found the courage to say it aloud. Now, hearing it from him, the tension and longing between them crystallized into something real, something tangible. As they continued walking, a gentle drizzle began to fall. Emily laughed softly, tilting her face toward the sky. "Of course it starts raining now," she said. Alex smiled, holding his jacket over her shoulders. "Seems like fate has a sense of humor," he replied. The way he cared so naturally and attentively stirred something deep inside her. A quiet reassurance that despite the months apart, the bond they shared had not faded. They found a small park bench under a street lamp and sat, letting the rain create a rhythm around them. Conversation flowed easily, yet beneath it ran a deeper current. A mutual recognition of what had been lost, what had been missed, and the hope that tonight might offer a second chance. Emily's thoughts wandered to all the unspoken words, the moments that had slipped by too quickly, and the quiet longing she had carried alone. And now, with Alex beside her, she realized that perhaps some things were meant to wait, not because they were lost but because timing mattered. A soft gust of wind brought the scent of wet pavement and autumn leaves, filling the night with a quiet intimacy. Emily looked at Alex, her heart swelling with emotion she hadn't anticipated. He was more than a friend tonight. He was a reminder of hope, a reflection of her own courage, and the possibility that sometimes life circles back in the most unexpected ways. And in that moment, as the rain fell softly around them and city lights danced on puddles, Emily knew one thing for certain. This night, this small twist of fate, was no longer just another Friday evening. Something had shifted, quietly, gently, and yet profoundly. The past had returned to meet the present, and with it, a fragile, beautiful chance at something more. The rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle, leaving a soft sheen over the streets. Emily and Alex walked side by side, their steps in quiet rhythm. The night felt suspended, almost magical, as if the world had conspired to give them this moment. A rare pause from everything else. Emily stole a glance at Alex. He seemed softer in the dim streetlights, more present than she had ever remembered. Her chest tightened with a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. They had laughed, reminisced, and shared memories, but tonight felt different. More fragile, more real. Emily. Alex's voice broke the silence, low and hesitant. She looked at him, catching the slight tremor in his tone. There's something I need to tell you. I've kept it inside for a long time, and I can't anymore. Her heart skipped a beat. She had imagined this moment countless times in the past, but hearing it now made it more tangible than she had ever dared hope. You don't have to, she started, but he shook his head gently. No, he said. I need you to hear this. He took a breath, his eyes holding hers. I've missed you. More than just as a friend. I've always felt something between us, something I never said because I didn't want to risk losing you. Emily's throat tightened. She hadn't expected the words, though in her heart she had known the truth all along. The moments they had shared, the stolen glances, the warmth that lingered in his presence, they had always spoken louder than words. Alex, she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. I felt the same way. I didn't know if you felt it too. I thought it was just me. A quiet laugh escaped him, soft and almost incredulous. It wasn't just you, he said. I've been hoping that one day we'd find ourselves here together, honest about it. The city around them seemed to fade, leaving only the gentle sound of rain and the rhythm of their hearts. For the first time in years, Emily felt fully seen, understood, and cherished. Not as a distant friend, but as someone who mattered deeply to another person. They paused on a small bridge overlooking the river, the water reflecting the streetlights in shimmering patterns. Emily leaned slightly on the railing, her mind awash with memories of the past, the late-night talks, the laughter, the quiet support they had given each other. And now, standing here listening to Alex's confession, it all made sense. I was afraid, Emily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Afraid that saying anything would change things, or that it wouldn't be real. Alex reached out, gently brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. It's real, Emily. It's always been real. Even when we didn't know how to say it. Her eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief and joy that someone she had cared for so deeply had felt the same. The years apart, the quiet longing, the uncertainty. They all led to this moment, a fragile but undeniable truth. They stood there for a long moment, letting the weight of their feelings settle between them. No words could capture it fully, and yet the silence was perfect. It was honest, intimate, and deeply moving. A confession without need for grandeur, filled only with sincerity and emotion. Emily realized that the fear she had carried, the loneliness that had sometimes felt unbearable, was slowly dissolving. The bond they had built in the past was not only alive, it was stronger, more resilient, and now infused with the honesty that had been missing. "I've wanted to tell you so many times," Alex said softly. "But I waited because I needed to be sure. Sure that I wasn't just chasing memories. That this us could be real." Emily smiled, a tear escaping down her cheek. "It is real," she said. "And I'm ready to see where this goes. I've waited a long time too." A gentle gust of wind swept through the bridge, carrying with it the soft scent of rain-soaked earth and the promise of change. In that moment, Emily felt a sense of calm and hope she hadn't known in years. What had started as a simple night out with friends had transformed into something far more profound. A night where truths were spoken, hearts were opened, and the possibility of love became tangible. As they walked back toward the cafe side by side, Emily couldn't help but feel that the world had shifted slightly in their favor. What had been hidden for so long was finally allowed to shine. And in the quiet glow of the city lights, they both knew that this was only the beginning of something beautiful, a journey born from friendship, patience, and the courage to speak their hearts. The night had grown quiet, the city streets now softened by the gentle rhythm of distant traffic and the occasional echo of late-night laughter. Emily and Alex wandered along the sidewalk, side by side, their shoulders brushing lightly with each step. There was a calmness to the night that made everything feel suspended, like a pause in time meant just for them. They had been talking for hours about memories, dreams, and the little moments that had shaped their lives. But beneath the easy conversation, a deeper tension had been building. Emily could feel it, subtle yet unmistakable. It wasn't anger or frustration. It was longing, a fragile urgency that neither had addressed until now. As they approached a small park at the corner of the street, Alex slowed, letting his gaze settle on the twinkling lights above. The soft glow of the lampposts reflected in his eyes, and Emily realized she had never noticed the quiet intensity he carried before. Something about tonight had stripped away the hesitations and distractions that had kept their feelings at bay. "Emily," Alex said suddenly, breaking the silence. His voice was low but firm, carrying the weight of months, no years, of unspoken emotion. "There's something I need to tell you. I've tried to hold it in, but I can't anymore. I can't imagine another day without being honest about how I feel." Emily's heart raced. She had sensed this moment was coming, yet hearing it aloud sent a wave of emotion she hadn't anticipated. "Alex," she whispered, her voice catching. He turned to face her fully, his expression earnest. "You're not just a friend to me," he said, carefully choosing each word. "You've always been more than that. And every time we drifted apart I felt it. A piece of me missing. I didn't know if I could ever say it, but I have to now. I care about you. More than I've ever cared about anyone else." Emily's chest tightened, a mixture of relief, fear, and hope swirling inside her. She had felt the same way for so long, but the fear of rejection, the fear of changing the bond they already had kept her silent. Now, hearing his truth, it all became real. The years of quiet longing, the dreams she hadn't shared, the moments she had replayed in her mind countless times. I feel the same," she admitted, her voice trembling with emotion. "I've felt it for a long time, but I was afraid. Afraid that saying it would change everything, or that it wasn't meant to be." Alex smiled softly, a mixture of relief and something tender that made Emily's heart ache with recognition. "It won't change what we have. It'll just make it more real. Make it ours." They stood there under the soft glow of the lampposts, letting the words sink in. The night air felt warmer, charged with a gentle electricity that wasn't frightening but exhilarating. Emily realized that this turning point wasn't just about confession, it was about permission. Permission to embrace what they had both felt for so long, to let their connection grow without the weight of unspoken fears. For a few moments neither spoke. They simply stood together, watching the reflection of the streetlights ripple in the shallow puddles left by earlier rain. Each ripple seemed to mirror the emotions flowing quietly between them: hesitation, longing, relief, and a fragile but undeniable hope. Finally Emily spoke, her voice soft but resolute. I've been waiting for this. Waiting for someone to say it out loud, for us to admit it's real. I didn't want to lose what we had, but I also don't want to deny what's in my heart." Alex reached out, taking her hand gently in his. The gesture was simple, Yet it carried the weight of everything they had been through: distance, uncertainty, and the passage of time that had never erased their bond. "You won't lose me," he promised. "Not now, not ever." The sound of distant laughter from a nearby cafe broke the quiet, but neither noticed. Their attention was entirely on each other, the world around them fading into insignificance. Emily felt tears prick her eyes, but they were tears of joy, of relief, of the profound recognition that some connections are too deep to be denied. "I've imagined this moment so many times," Emily said quietly, squeezing his hand. "And it's even better than I imagined." Alex chuckled softly, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "I think I've imagined it too," he admitted, his voice low and sincere. "But life is better when it's real, not just imagined." They stood there for a while longer, letting the night wrap around them. It wasn't a grand declaration or a dramatic gesture. It was something quieter, more meaningful: honesty, trust, and the shared knowledge that they had found each other again when it mattered most. And as Emily looked at Alex, she realized that this turning point wasn't just a moment in time. It was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where fear no longer dictated their choices, where longing could finally become fulfillment, and where the bond they had built over years of friendship could blossom into something deeper and lasting. The city lights flickered softly above, and Emily allowed herself to imagine the future. Not in leaps and bounds, but in small, steady steps taken together. Tonight had been unexpected, unpredictable, and beautiful. And in that quiet park under the gentle glow of the lamplights, Emily felt a truth she had longed for. Sometimes the heart has to wait for the right moment to speak, and when it does, it can change everything. The following days felt almost dreamlike to Emily. The city, once familiar and routine, now seemed full of subtle magic. Every street corner, every cafe window, every late-night walk was touched with the memory of that night. The laughter, the quiet confessions, the gentle realization that something long hidden had finally come to light. Emily and Alex began to spend more time together, initially with the same casualness they had always shared, yet now imbued with a deeper awareness. Every conversation, every shared smile, carried the weight of honesty. There was no rush, no grand gestures, only the steady unfolding of connection that had been years in the making. They went for walks through the city parks, the autumn leaves crunching beneath their feet, each step a reminder of the simplicity and joy of companionship. They revisited familiar cafes, reminiscing about old memories while making new ones. In those moments, Emily realized that love wasn't always about fireworks or dramatic declarations. Sometimes it was in the quiet attentiveness, the shared laughter, and the comfort of knowing someone truly understood you. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low over the horizon, casting the streets in soft amber light, Alex and Emily found themselves sitting on a park bench overlooking the river. The water reflected the sky's warm hues, creating a scene so serene it seemed almost unreal. They sat in companionable silence, hands occasionally brushing, words unnecessary. "You know," Alex said quietly, breaking the gentle stillness, "I think I've been waiting for this my whole life. Not just for us to reconnect, but for this moment. For us to finally be honest about how we feel, and let it be real." Emily smiled, feeling a gentle warmth in her chest. "I think I've been waiting too," she admitted. "But not just for tonight or for us to say the words. I've been waiting to feel like I could trust life again, to believe that good things, beautiful things, can happen even when you least expect them." He turned to look at her, eyes reflecting the golden glow of the setting sun. "Emily, I don't know what the future holds," he said, his voice steady yet full of emotion. "But I know that I want to face it with you. No matter what comes next, I want to do it together." Her heart swelled at his words. There was no pressure, no grand promise beyond the truth they could both trust: honesty, commitment, and the willingness to walk forward together. She squeezed his hand gently. "I want that too, Alex. I really do." From that day on, the pace of their relationship felt natural, unforced. They discovered the joy in simple rituals: morning coffee together before the day began, evening walks under the city lights, small notes left on each other's desks reminding them that someone cared deeply. The intimacy between them was emotional and comforting, rooted in respect and trust. Every laugh shared, every memory revisited, every quiet moment of support reinforced the depth of their bond. Emily realized that this was the kind of love that didn't need to be loud or dramatic. It wasn't about grand gestures or sweeping declarations. It was about presence, understanding, and the quiet courage to be seen. Alex became not just a companion, but a confidant, a partner in the truest sense, someone who made even ordinary days feel meaningful. Weeks turned into months, and their friendship blossomed fully into love. Their past, with its misunderstandings, missed opportunities, and unspoken feelings, was no longer a source of regret, but a foundation for what they were building now. Emily cherished the journey as much as the destination, knowing that the slow unfolding of their connection made it all the more profound. One evening they returned to the cafe where it all had begun, sitting in the same corner where they had shared laughter and nostalgia. The familiar hum of conversation and the soft glow of lights created a sense of continuity, as if life itself had gently guided them back to the right place at the right time. "I'm grateful for that night," Emily said softly, her eyes meeting Alex's. "It reminded me that some things are worth waiting for." Alex smiled, a quiet, tender smile that made her heart flutter even after all this time. "I'm grateful too. For you. For us. For the way life gave us a second chance." As they left the cafe together, stepping out into the crisp night air, Emily felt a profound sense of contentment. The city lights sparkled around them, reflecting in her eyes like a mirror of her emotions, hopeful, joyful, and certain. This wasn't just a new chapter. It was a new beginning, one built on trust, honesty, and the patient beauty of love finally realized. The night stretched before them, full of promise. Emily glanced at Alex, and he looked back at her with the same quiet understanding that had always defined their connection. No words were needed, only the shared knowledge that they had found each other, and that whatever the future held, they would face it together. And in that moment, Emily knew something deeply true. Sometimes the most extraordinary moments in life aren't the ones we plan or anticipate. They are the ones that arrive unexpectedly, quietly, and perfectly, like a night out with friends that turns into the beginning of everything you've been waiting for. The city hummed around them, alive yet gentle, and Emily felt, for the first time in a long while, that she was exactly where she was meant to be.